In this episode, I will talk about the shotgun Crips and the Paybacc Crips. The shotgun Crips are a hood from Gardena. The shotguns have been around for over 40 years and have good relationships with hoods in Gardena like the Paybacc Crips and the Serrano gang, Gardena 13. They also had good relationships with gangs out of Gardena like the 8 Gangsters. Gangs in Gardena are known to wear the color green, so outside of the traditional Crip blue, the shotguns wear green as well. The shotguns sport Green Bay Packer gear to rep Gardena and shotgun. The shotgun Crips have class with hoods like the Cycle 13s and some neighborhood gangs like the 60s and the Hawthorne Power Rouge, just to name a few. The shotgun's allies, the Paybacc Crips, are from Gardena as well and started over 40 years ago. They have a lot of the same rivals and allies as the shotguns. The Paybaccs are also cool with hoods like the Gardena 13s and the Hoovers. Enemies include hoods like the Cycle 13s and the Raymond Ave Crips, just to name a few. With that being said, now I'm going to go into some cases. This first case happened on December 22nd, 2007. Latoria and her husband Dimitri and their friends David and Latoya returned to Latoria and Dimitri's home after a night out. Latoria and Dimitri got out the car and sat in front of their home and engaged in a convo, while Latoya and David stood by the car. A white car drove slowly by David and Latoya, then made a U-turn and stopped next to David. A passenger of the white car hopped out and asked David, "You know Braxton?" David replied he didn't know anyone named Braxton. The passenger went to the back seat and recovered a burner and fired it in the air, and David ran immediately. The passenger of the white car was later identified as a man named Donald. Donald chased after David and he shot 3 times, dropping David to the floor. As David lay motionless, Donald fired a few more shots and jumped in the passenger seat of the car he pulled up in. David would survive the shooting. Latoria, Dimitri, and David all picked Donald out of a photo lineup and all testified in court. The driver was never identified. Donald was a shotgun Crip member at the shooting. He dropped his cell phone, which led back to him and showed his affiliation with the shotguns. The street the shooting happened on was 106th Street in South Central, which is a close proximity of many neighborhood gangs, and that was determined the motive of the shooting, catching neighborhood members. Donald was sentenced to 25 years to life for the shooting. March of 2008, police did a parole search of a man named Corey, who was from Paybacc Crip. In his home, they found a burner under his bed. To avoid jail time, he agreed to become a CI, a confidential informant. Corey would tell the police where the burners were, who had them, what homes to search, even being paid $150 per arrest, or $150 each burner found. On August 10th, 2008, a house party was being held in Lancaster at a man named Robert's home. Corey, his girlfriend, and his friends Torrin, Gregory, and Trayvon all came to the party in Corey's Suburban. As they tried to enter the party, 2 men who were working at the door, Ray and Keith, tried to pat down Torrin. Torrin got mad and refused to let them pat him down. Torrin returned to the Suburban, and Ray and Torrin got into an altercation. Ray yelled out BOP, which is a blood gang called Bloods on Point. Torrin yelled out a diss to BOP. Robert would say he heard Paybacc Crip being yelled. Everyone in the Suburban was from Shotgun Crip or Paybacc Crip. Torrin lifted his shirt, showing his burner. Robert and Ray walked away to avoid him. Corey and his group got in his Suburban and drove away. While driving away from the party, they drove past 2 men, Delino and Darrell. Corey asked them where was they from and why they had on red. Delino would say because this is Liggett Street. Corey began to drive away when someone in the car yelled, "Nah, them was Bloods," and began to shoot. Darrell was shot twice, but he survived. Robert told police about the incident at his party and how Torrin lifted his shirt and showed his burner. At trial, Darrell and Delino would say they didn't know who shot and couldn't remember anything. Corey's girlfriend would say Torrin was the shooter. She even said Torrin told her to keep her mouth shut or something bad was going to happen to her. Corey and Torrin were both charged in the shooting. Both received sentences of 25 years to life. In the early morning of June 28, 2014, Lavelle, a nutty black Crip, was at a club in Hollywood when he got into an altercation with a shotgun Crip named Brian. Lavelle threw a drink on Brian, and Brian responded by pulling out his burner and cocking it back. Lavelle dissed the shotgun Crips, and Brian shot him point blank range, taking his life. 3 other club goers got caught in the crossfire and were shot, but all survived. The whole shooting was captured on tape, even Brian fleeing with his burner in his hand. Brian immediately fled to Nevada. He was later arrested there. While in jail, Brian blamed his girlfriend for starting the altercation and accused her of snitching. Many witnesses from the club came forth, including Lavelle's girlfriend, and they all picked Brian out as the shooter. Brian was charged and sentenced to 50 years to life. This last case happened on May 2nd, 2017. Xavier, David, Jose, Edward, Trevor, and Mario were all hanging out on 131st Place in an apartment complex. Xavier was a known shotgun member. Orlando, who was a Raymond Ave Crip, drove up to the apartment building, and Orlando fired 4 to 5 shots at the group, taking the life of David. Xavier, Jose, and Edward were all shot, but all survived. Cameras caught the whole thing, and phone records put Orlando to the shooting. Xavier and Jose picked Orlando out as the shooter. Xavier knew Orlando from prior run-ins. Orlando was placed in a cell with an agent, where he would mention who was in the car, and that he loaded the burner with socks so it wouldn't come back to him. He would even mention where the victims were shot at. One of the people in the car with Orlando was a woman named Regina. She would tell for a reduced sentence. She would admit that it was all Orlando's idea, and that he was the shooter. Orlando was sentenced to 95 years to life. This will conclude this episode. If you haven't already, check out my previous videos. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.